you don't stand up then. Okay, so we'll get started. So Omar Mora is a Lubbock realtor. He's done over 30 transactions in the past 12 months for over $8 million in production. Now, I know that number is actually higher. My numbers
I
on
was gonna
on
say,
my
I'm
side
just
are
like,
always low. But he's also a real estate investor. He's got several investment properties, some of them that he's managed huge rebuilds or renovations on, and he recently did a huge land deal. Omar, welcome to the show.
nice to have, nice to be here.
So, how did you and I meet? Yeah, tell me about our first visit.
Well, I think I got a call from a strange area code, which is always a little intimidating to pick up the phone because you're wondering what they want. But anyways, a guy was on the other line, invited me to have coffee, told me that he was a lender, and I do remember that personally, you did a very good job getting me to that first meet because a lot of times I'm a little too busy to take those kind of introductory meetings, and but like I said, you got me to that first one.
Well, dude, I'm glad you came. When I first met you, I respected that you were fit, successful in real estate, obviously, because of the numbers. I was pulling up stats and just sorting by buy side production to decide who to call and invite to meet for coffee. But I also felt like I could trust you right away because I don't know if I've talked to some of our mutual clients about this, like Autry. I was like, dude, isn't Omar like the most likable guy? Because you're sharing some little like challenges about your day that you were having. It wasn't like anything big, just like little trivial stuff. But right off the bat, you just seemed like very open and authentic. You were fit, you were on time, you were buttoned up, professional, articulate. Um, and so I was impressed right away and happy that you took the meeting. So, um, what should home buyers be looking for in a realtor?
Man, that's a great question. And the nature of my business, I deal with a lot of people that, personally, I didn't go to Friendship High School. I didn't go to Texas Tech Credit Union. I'm sorry, Texas Tech University. And so not being a local, I had to, really work on honestly selling myself because I didn't have a huge network. So I kind of find myself explaining that to people and leaving them the option as to who they're going to pick. But, I have to reinforce that because it's not because most of my business, especially early on, was not the referral business, not being a local. So, I mean, I take a ton of pride in trying to check off those boxes, but I'm always reminding potential clients that I think track record speaks volumes. I'm huge on getting a review. From everybody that I interact with in this business. I don't buy stocks from Amazon without reading the reviews, and I definitely don't think you should be buying the biggest purchase of your life without looking at a sales history record, checking on some of the reviews that were written by previous clients, and getting a real experience from, a track record of experience from what that realtor was able to do. So, listen, I was a newbie at one point, and I'm grateful that I was able to claw my way out of the mud. But there's a lot of people whose marketing can outperform their skill sets as an advisor, as a realtor. And so you just want to make sure that, and again, not all realtors are the same. There are some that are really good at selling new construction and some that might be a little bit more suited for the investment side, as far as, that's kind of what their inclination is. So picking the right type of realtor, I think, is a big part of it. And then checking the track record of their experience in the type of home that you're trying to purchase.
Okay. How long have you been a realtor in Lubbock?
I got my license in February of 2017.
And what do you think got you into real estate?
Man, I had purchased investment properties years and years ago when the market crashed. And so I think initially my passion for real estate investment started a long time ago, but just life took me in different directions where I never ended up getting my license. When I showed up here in Lubbock, I think I had passed through the most recent time in about 2015, picked up a house, flipped it. I had a great experience doing it. I was kind of trying to figure out what I was going to be doing for a living. I was in a transition between industries and did not like my experience at the place that I was at the moment. And I just felt like God kept calling, reminding me like, hey man, that was such a great opportunity in a place like Lubbock. I mean, at the time in 2015, 16, we were buying 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom brick homes for 89, $99,000, and so I'm like, this place is prime for great opportunity, and so I decided to come back, give it a shot, get my license here, only really so that I can find and identify more investment properties. And then I realized that the sales opportunity turned out to be something that I kind of enjoyed doing as well.
Okay. And so when I was growing up, I think when I was like I don't know, when I was really young, I wanted to be a paleontologist. A paleontologist digs up dinosaur bones. Okay. I told lots of people about that when I was a kid. What did you want to be when you grew up, when you were young?
That changed so much over the course of the years, but I mean, when I was a little kid, I mean, I know it kind of sounds funny, but I absolutely loved fishing. I thought for sure I was gonna be a professional fishing guy. I know people are like, you of all, I
That would
love
be
the
awesome.
outdoors. I grew up in Florida, so I grew up on the
Um,
water, spent all my life on the water. I absolutely loved it. And then as I got older, I got into sports, and I would say probably golf was like a real passion of mine for years, years and years. I was obsessed. I would park my car out on a fairway bunker in the middle of the night, turn the lights on, and just hit bunker shots, and I felt so
okay,
good
cool.
about being the only guy out there practicing. I felt like I was gaining ground on people. I mean, I was obsessed. So I would say sports was always something that I think for sure, I could have saw myself doing.
I don't know if it's in my notes to talk about, but you were a college athlete, weren't you?
Well, no, I mean, like it's just one of those things where I would love to say that I spent more time actively pursuing that, but it's just one of those things where I think life got in the way a little bit too much.
Got it. Okay. So, you and I have worked primarily on home buyers. Um, what do Lubbock realtors need to understand before they can be successful with home buyers in the Lubbock market?
Uh, I mean, obviously, I think understanding your client's needs, they don't all fit in one box, and just doing like a true, honest initial consultation and just finding out where they stand, what are their goals. Listen, it's very different. Somebody's moving into their retirement home, or if this is somebody's first home. And in real estate, we're taught we're not supposed to be financial advisors, but I can tell you right now, personally, I'm very much into the aspect of whether or not this is a good investment for the client. And I try to put myself in their shoes and say, would this be a good purchase? So understanding where they're at financially, understanding what their goals are, I think is absolutely critical and where they stand. I think that leads into the next subject matter where, like a lot of people they're so excited about possibly buying a home and they find out they're not qualified to get a home. My stance is the answer is never no. The answer is yes if you, and then give them some guidance. And so I think understanding where your client fits on that spectrum as far as how close they really are to achieving their dreams. Are they actually qualified to buy now, or will that be something that they'll be tackling in 6 months? And then understanding what their goals are as far as the purpose of that home. I'll be honest with you, if they're telling me they plan on selling the home in 3 to 5 years, that will definitely influence the type of home I advise them to buy.
Okay. So if you could go back to Omar 1 week, 1 month into the business, right when you were getting started, um, and you could talk to yourself at that point in your career after everything that you've learned up to this point, what would you say to him?
Oh, man, wow, that's a mouthful. I think that, going back through it's been what, 8 years now that I've been active realtor here in Lubbock, and if I had to go back and kind of reevaluate my career and the trajectory and what could have possibly changed or improved the trajectory is is kind of building more. Think of my business here instead of being an investor and a salesperson, think of it as a franchise location. and truly building a team. Don't be afraid to teach, train, delegate, hire assistants, transaction coordinators, listing coordinators, marketing coordinators. The way I built my business for the first few years was so much more like, I'm the cog that turns everything. I'm more of a salesperson. I meet people, I sell the home. When I stop selling, I stop making money. And so I think looking back, if I can go back and say something as far as my career path, uh, I would have focused a little bit more, a little sooner on building more of a business than being more of a salesperson. Like I need to have referral agents, and teach, train, and delegate.
Got it. Um, how is that going now? I thought you have a couple people on your team now, don't you?
Yeah, actually, I think I went through just recently, I made it a huge priority. So it's kind of like a real topic of conversation for me. I think I hit a little bit of a growth spurt in my business. I found a couple of really good, talented people that, I wanted to, like I said, there's a couple pillars in this industry locally that I completely like you know, I study them. They're very successful agents in town. I don't care if wherever they're at, let's say online, I want my face to be next to theirs. So if they're high on Zillow or Google or whatever, I try to imitate the people who have a proven track record of success. And something that I got into a few months ago was just looking at how they set up their teams. And and yes, they absolutely do still service a lot of their clients, but they are very good at delegating things out to, like I said, listing coordinators, referral agents. They don't have to take every single lead that hits their desk. Okay. And so I think the only way to do volume, I think last year I might have sold 46, 47 homes, individual transactions. So you can imagine how many homes I had to go into and show how many contracts we wrote that did not get accepted to get to the point where we actually can sell 46, 47 homes. There's not much more time in the day for me, right? So if I want to get any better or grow my business, it's not about working harder at that point. It's literally having to work smarter. And so, not to sound cliche, but I have to understand that part of that process when you're delegating things out is that the service standards may drop a little bit. And I think the art is being able to teach, train, and delegate and try to maintain the service standards that not only do I expect, but that my clients are used to receiving. So I don't want to make it seem like I'm delegating things out to an assistant or a referral agent, but they're going to get a lesser product when I refer them out, right? I want to make sure that service standard stays the same. If I can achieve that, then technically I can grow my business exponentially because there's not any more time in the day. It's not like I can go do more deals, right? Honestly, for one person, that's about as much as you could possibly do. It's about getting some help, getting some qualified help, teaching them, training them, and maintaining that service standard that my clients are accustomed to.
Yeah. So when I first started coming to Lubbock and working this market, that when I was sorting people by buy side production, there might, the top 20 realtors in Austin might have 24 buy side deals per year. Well, it's like everybody in that top 20 in Lubbock had 50 or more, or was very close to that number. So it was funny. It's like it seemed to me like all agents were working to make around the same amount of money. Just Lubbock agents were working twice as hard to accomplish it. So I did notice some productive teams right away. People that were, I don't know if they were good at having their teams deliver the same service that they would give on their own, like how good they were at building teams. But I knew that it would be necessary. So I agree with you on
Yeah,
that.
we all have a number that we're trying to hit, and I think that when we get to that number, we can all get a little complacent. And the
Mm.
number that we have to hit in Lubbock has to be a little higher by
Yeah, double.
transaction count than the
Yeah,
guys in a big city. So
yeah,
my business, and again, some people say, Omar, you're over servicing a deal that's $120,000. Okay. But I built
yeah.
my business on white glove concierge, full service, right? And by the grace of God, I'll be honest with you, I can have a sale that's $1 million or one that's 200,000. And I truly do believe I can look in the mirror and say my client got the exact same service. I'm not basing it on the commission. That's just, I come from the hospitality industry and I love to provide that just the brand of business that I produce. that brand is probably better suited to do 20 to 24 deals. It's hard to maintain those service standards when you're doing 46, 47 deals
Yeah.
and you're really servicing these clients. So, in a perfect world, like the direction that I would like to take my business is focus on less clients and still be able to maintain those service standards. I get it. Everybody wants to be selling $1 million homes, And so I'm proud to say that Lubbock was a boot camp for real estate. I learned a ton in this market. I started out as a transaction coordinator for my parents. I think I did 65 deals my first year with them. My mother would sell the home, we'll call that A, and then she would show up to closing, we'll call that Z. I would do B to Y. So I got a lot of experience that first year before I worked my first personal contract. Um, I got my stripes, like I wasn't the kind of person whose marketing outperformed their experience. Like when
Right.
people called me, I knew that I was qualified to. Because a lot of guys, you can get your license, you could have a great Instagram account. Next, you got a client. But you got to be careful in those kind of situations because you can easily put your client in a position where that's not in their best interest. Because if you personally, if I was a client again and I was shopping, going back to your initial question, I was shopping for a realtor. I'm looking for somebody who did a certain amount of volume. I'm looking for somebody who worked with other clients like me, the type of houses I'm looking to buy. But if that was everybody's method, newbies wouldn't get a deal. Newbies would be
Right.
stuck doing what I did, having to
Yeah.
get their stripes.
Yeah.
So I'm actually glad. I know I can move to a big city and sell, in a big city. I will say this much. It would be very difficult for some agents to come to Lubbock and be successful. Yes, it's a smaller city. Yes, it's a good old boy town and probably the competition is not as intense, but it's not an easy market to make a living. You've gotta sell 40 to 50 homes if you want to make a good living wage.
Yeah, so I mean, we need to acknowledge you're keeping a couple of the other plates spinning too. I think right now, 1 out of 4 Americans is considered healthy. What does it take to, that was something I respected about you right away. It's because I know how much work it takes to stay in shape, but you've also built a successful business beside that. So what does it take to actually produce a healthy body and produce a healthy real estate business?
I,
How have you
you
done
know,
that?
real estate, you know, I think my personal health goals, it was a New Year's resolution years and years and years ago. Probably don't want to say what year it was, so I don't date myself, but it's been a long time that I just made a commitment, to being healthy. And again, I know it sounds cliche, but it's part of my daily medication. It keeps me sane, like I need that for I'll be honest, you clients will call me when I'm at the gym. The gym is an appointment to me. It's an important appointment, And so if they labeled it a different way, if they said like, listen, I have a doctor's appointment, you would have a client respect those boundaries and allow you to go to the doctor without making you feel like you were putting something ahead of their home purchase, right? It's hard for me to say, hey, I'll call you back when I get done with the gym.
Yeah.
People might not understand that it's that important to me though. It's an appointment. It's part of what keeps me mentally healthy. And so I made it a priority. It was very tough to get used to me because it's one of the first things that fall off the table when you get really busy. So,
Yeah.
but I'll tell you right now, I made it a priority, and I will say this much: it's one of those kind of things that I truly do believe it translates in a lot of different areas of my life. Like it really does. It's like conditioning for being a disciplined person.
Yep. I totally agree. I mean, I noticed that we had it in common, and so maybe that we got along right away. I don't think
Yeah,
it's because of that, but you just like no, you just kind of
it's tough. It's tough to wake
yeah,
up at 5 o'clock in the morning sometimes to go to the gym. But when you know that's your only chance to get it in, because the rest of
yeah,
the day is just slam packed with work,
yep,
then I'm proud. To me, it's a moral, it's a mental victory that I actually got up and got it done. So
yeah.
it's
That I mean, that is a pretty big win. Working out in the cold and the dark is not ideal, but definitely that you have that under your belt by 7 a.m. So.
Yeah,
When
there's
you and
some
I've
times where
done,
honestly I have to go there at the very end of the day, which I can't stand because I hate being so tired by the end of the day. And
I
again,
know.
I feel like I took care of myself last. And
Yeah.
so for me, I like to go earlier in the day
Yeah.
because I want to know that I just took care of myself first, you know?
Yeah.
And so
100%.
I absolutely love servicing my clients and making sure that they're happy and that they're feeling like they're getting, response time is they're not having to wait on their answers or they're getting the kind of service they deserve. But I will say this much, putting myself in a position to be successful, part of that is getting to the gym and taking care of myself. So whether it's
Yep.
eating, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I see memes and it's like realtors, they eat in the car in between showings. Their steps are basically at their showings and stuff like that. So I love the fact that I actually have made that kind of a priority for myself and not let work get in the way of that. 'Cause because it's so important to me.
Talk about that part you just mentioned. What's your diet like?
Diet is it's pretty, it's different than a lot of people's. Probably since New Year's, I bet you probably I might have eaten out in Lubbock, not on vacation, probably 3, 4 times. I might have had a soda once or twice since New Year's. So I cook a lot. I'm always getting you know, I'm all about Costco and going shopping. And I don't know, again, another thing that makes me feel good, not just about saving money, but just eating healthy. So I'm big in the kitchen. I'm always cooking, meal prepping, meal prepping, meal prepping. I think that's another thing too that helps you stay healthy is that if you don't meal prep and you're out there showing houses, you're out there on the run and you're stuck eating at Chipotle. Not that Chipotle's bad. I'm just saying is that you're hitting Chick-fil-A, you're hitting Chipotle. For me, I definitely want the most important meal of the day for me is breakfast. I eat a great breakfast. And then the rest of the day, I usually eat the meal preps. And then for dinner, I usually cook something fresh. But yeah, mostly it's home cooking. I'm not eating out too much. I
That's
think the
really
3 or 4
cool.
times I ate out was actually a business dinner.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, cool. Well, you and I have done some challenging transactions together uh, over the course of the past few years. What's the craziest story from a past transaction that you have, or do any transactions come to mind that we've done?
Well, actually, it goes back to the first question that you said about like, how did I meet, like, how did I meet you? And I remember a lot of people, they're always listening. Hey, I'm a lender. I'd like to have coffee with you. And then it's like, what can you do for me, kind of thing, almost. And I'm like, listen, I have relationships with lenders already. I'll keep you in mind, kind of thing. But I do remember like part of your approach is that, I do feel like your approach was very much customer service oriented. And then you had a background in just with credit and debt and stuff like that, where you were very creative as far as you were very confident in your ability to get a buyer to the closing table that a lot of lenders may not be able to get. And so I genuinely thought, well, let me keep this guy's card and keep him in mind because if I'm dealing with a bigger institution that might have a little bit of red tape and we can't get it done, let's see what Corbin can do. And so I think you tease me about this, but the only time I call you is when I can't get it done and I need somebody to, Hail Mary, let's call Corbin up and let's get this deal done. So every time, a lot of times it's usually like it's usually a self-employed person who might need some help with like, of course, we always write off everything we can and we might not have the right taxable income, but we have, big stars in our eyes and we want a nice home. And so now we can't qualify for the kind of home we want because of the way we filed our taxes. So the one in particular that I was thinking about, I mean, if I remember correctly, you helped him do his taxes as well. I mean, like it was full service. You had to go back and do some amendments with his taxes, get his taxes looking the way they needed to be, which got his income where it needed to be, which got us qualified, and we got it to the finish line. So usually it takes a little bit extra massaging when I'm bringing you somebody because they're self-employed. But I will say this much: I don't think to this date, I don't think I've ever sent anybody to you that you weren't able to get them qualified. So
Yeah, I
that's
think
been
I
kind of
think that is I think we are batting 1,000 with you on
Yes.
deals too.
Yes.
But when deals come from you, I know that they're buying. We don't have to do any convincing for people about real estate. We're not, there's no, we just get to focus on the loan file and what the borrower's goals are. We know that that person wants to buy a house.
Mhm.
So that is all of the work done. Is finding the person who wants to buy the house. Once that's accomplished, there's usually a way to get the loan done. But yeah, I think we've 100% of the people that you've introduced, um, we've closed. But I know you do a lot of preliminary underwriting on your own because you know what questions to ask. What's income like? What's credit like? Do y'all have any money saved? So, I mean, you've already done all that, and I know that if they, told you that they had 500 credit scores and no income and no money saved, that you probably wouldn't even make the connection. So I can't really take all the credit for that, but um, we always look forward to your buyers because they're always so committed to buying the house.
Yeah, well, like I said, you tease me about it, but I do know one thing. When we do run into a roadblock, I do know that I can honestly say you're probably the most creative lender that I know, and we're definitely batting 1,000. If I sent them over to you, I know one thing. We ended up getting a pre-approval, and it's really up to the buyer if they decided to move forward or not. But I know you were able to actually find a way of getting it done, even if it meant that you had to go and have their taxes redone. So
Yeah.
it's been a nice resource to have. A lot of people, as far as people in the industry on the real estate side, as a realtor, we all like the low hanging fruit, but unfortunately, that's not. I can't tell you how many leads I give to to other agents, newer agents, and hey, here's a potential buyer. Go ahead and work it, and oh, there's no deal there. Well, there's a deal there. You just have to be creative and persistent enough, and so. There are sometimes, I'll be honest with you, the guy that I was referring to with you, that might have been probably something that, in my honest opinion, maybe 85, 90% of the people probably would have just said, come back and see us in 6 months, and then maybe we can revisit the idea of you guys buying. But but we were one of we were the 15% that actually said, hold on, we can try to find a way of making it work right now, and
Yeah.
uh, and push those doors open.
I want you to take as much credit as you are willing to on that track record because um, it's not all realtors are equal. Um, we know that if we put in 100% or if we go all in or put our heart and soul into a buyer, we know that you're doing the same thing on your side. And we know that two professional groups, my team and your team doing that, we know that that deal is likely to close. So when I'm in conversation with Heather or with my team, I give a likelihood now, and if it's coming from you just right off the bat, I'm saying, hey guys, this one's probably at 90 or 95%. And they're prioritizing that file. They put a little more effort, a little more focus in, a little more creativity. They'll set up more brainstorm calls with our head of credit or do whatever it takes to get that deal just because the likelihood is so high. Um, Sometimes we get connections where, I don't want to give the exact circumstance because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but where the likelihood is just lower. Because we know that we're the only ones carrying that whole transaction. And with you, it's definitely a partnership, and so we really appreciate you for that. So tell me about your greatest bounce back in life as a realtor.
Bounce back. Define bounce back. You mean save a deal?
No, I mean like I'm meaning not on a transaction, but in like time. So, so like in a time period, like has there ever been a time period as a realtor that you remember where maybe it was a low period, maybe it was super challenging over a long period of time where you were you bounced back from that, so this is speaking to other agents who may be going through the same thing. People say this is a tough market right now. I don't think everybody is having that experience. So tell me about your greatest bounce back. uh
Well, I just went through a pretty big bounce back. I mean, I had an amazing year. I set a goal. I had, the years prior, I was always kind of dabbling in investment properties. I'm like
Mhm.
two a days at Home Depot. I'm general contractor. I've got my business casual in the back seat of my truck, so I can swap change clothes in the back seat and go show a house. Like that was my life for the first few years as a realtor, where I'm always like renovating a house. Sometimes I'm actually the labor, and then next year I'm showing houses. And so last year I wanted to prove to myself that, listen, I can keep up with some of the these Mount Rushmore of realtors here in Lubbock. Um, I wanted to know, I just needed to prove to myself that I can, that if that's the direction I want to go in, that I can hold my own as one of the more, you know, productive realtors in this town. So I started off last year, January, like I was ready to take off. And I think the first couple months, first 3, 4 months, I was doing like four transactions a month, just going into summer. And then of course I had a really big summer. And and by the time I got to December, I was so burnt out because I was going 110 miles an hour the entire year. I just wanted to put up one really good number. And so January came around and I was just a little like mentally deflated. I just needed a chance to like catch my breath in between sets, if you would. And everybody else was already off to the races on the next lap. They're working on 2025 goals. And I'm like, I just need a second to catch my breath. And I think in the process of doing a little bit of that, and just it's like you get all this momentum going, and when you slow it down, it's kind of hard to pick it back up. I went through a little skid at the very, very beginning of the year where I think things started slowing down a little bit. I started questioning myself. I'm like, I had to check my systems. I'm like, am I saying things differently? Am I doing things differently? Because I'm expecting that once I started to actively, get engaged as a realtor again, that I'm supposed to be doing 4 or 5 deals a month. And I'm like, why is that not quite happening yet? And so I probably went through the largest skid I've been through since I started. I think I put something under contract, I want to say like in November, middle of November, right? Now it had a delayed closing and so on and so forth. But I think I put two of them in the middle of November that closed, one in January and one in February. That was the last thing I put under contract all the way to like, I want to say February or March.
Oh
That's a
my
lot
gosh.
to put a new house on. It was all listings that hadn't gone
Yeah.
under contract since then. But
Yeah.
I hadn't had a buyer ask me to write a contract in that long. And
Yeah.
so I was like, oh my gosh, I really started questioning the way I was doing business. I'm like, what's going on? I'm checking with lenders, I'm checking with inspectors. How is business? I'm checking with title companies. I'm like, is it just me? Am I doing
Yeah.
something wrong? Or are you guys slow too? Because I was getting a little nervous. And then go figure, like the floodgates just opened up about 30, 45 days ago, where all those listings I was working on during the winter, they started going under contract. Buyers started coming out of their shell. I think between the election and the holidays, I was blaming myself, but the truth is between the election and the holidays, a lot of people naturally just kind of pulled back a little bit. And as people were getting closer to their tax returns, they're coming back out of the shells, entering into the market. And then next, I'm back. But tell you right now, that was a little scary because I was like, man, I don't know if I can. I'm not, I had gone a whole year of just not just the sales. Of course, the commissions are nice. And the next, you're going through a dry spell. I'm like, oh my gosh, is that the way this is going to be the rest of the year? And so got a little scared there, but it's kind of nice. I would say, like I said, the last 30, 45 days, it's been picking up dramatically.
That's good to hear, man. People need to hear that. So, all right. So tell me about your greatest bounce back in life in general.
Oh wow, is this recorded? Are we going to post this? So
We don't, hey, we can cut anything you want to cut, but you can answer the
okay.
question freely if you want.
So I'm gonna give the PG-13 version for marketing purposes. I've been through a lot of things, and by the grace of God, you know, I have been able to bounce back. And as I get older, I'm a little bit more proud about sharing my testimony with people because I think it's what and I'm grateful that you said, the way you described me when we first met is like, oh, he's a successful realtor, he's in shape, or he's got his life together and all that kind of stuff. That wasn't always me. And been through some very difficult times, had to hit reset a number of times and start over, which is it's never easy. And but I'm learning to have faith that, like if God can get me through those times in the past, it really is. It develops a sense of confidence of knowing when I do go through some rough skids moving forward, let's say this time that where sales had dropped off, I'm not as concerned as I would have been, as fragile mentally as I was, because I've gone through some very difficult things in my life, you know. So, but God definitely has given me second and third opportunities. I'm so grateful for it. I mean, I'm literally living in answered prayers. There was times where life got so dark, I can't imagine. I mean, seriously, there was times where I wrote down actual goals, and I wake up, you know, let's say a day like today, I don't delete my goals. I save those things. If I ever go back and read my goals of 2015, 26, like when I first got here to Lubbock, when I first got my real estate license, you know, I think my first year my goal was to like have X amount of reviews or X amount of sales, and go through those and read those. This is why I don't like to delete those. It's just proof positive that I'm living in answered prayers, you know? So man, I you know, like I said, I've been through, I swear I've been held and back, and to know that I've been able to survive it by the grace of God, that whatever it is that I'm up against moving forward realistically, I know I'm calloused enough to make it through it. It's probably not going to be it's probably not going to be as tough as what I've been through. So it gives me a little sense of confidence.
Thank you so much for sharing that, man. That's very cool. All right, so we talked a lot about buyers. You and me are almost always working together in that aspect. I don't get to hear about the other side of your business as much. If you're going to sell your house in Lubbock, what do you need to know to be successful? So, speaking to home buyers now from an education perspective, if you want to sell your house in Lubbock, what do you need to know to be successful?
You know, my business, now that I'm into entering 7, 8 years in the business here, in fact, a lot of people that I have sold a home to, you know, 17, 18, 2019, they're now calling me 2020, you know, hey, I'd like to sell my home. So I'm getting more versed in not just the occasional listing, you know, five, six, seven, eight listings a year. I mean, I bet you I've had 10 listings this year already, you know, so plus 12 listings probably. And I've got a couple phone calls for listing appointments, you know, moving forward. The good news is that, you know, my brand was good enough when I sold them the home that they're calling me when it's time to sell their home, you know? So, uh, um, and I've been getting better at this interview, at this process, because I'm just getting the reps in. And I can't tell you, there's a lot of common denominators. You know, people ask, you know, people think that doing certain things to their home is going to change the value of their home. What can they do to change the value of their home? And something that I just very, very common, and it's actually rather affordable, is getting the landscaping tuned up, like properly tuned up, getting the inside detailed. Those two things. Now, again, I mean, I even have a third thing where you know, I offer my clients like, just, do you need contacts for handyman, whether it's painting and punch out lists and stuff like that. But we want to listen, if I was selling my car, I'm gonna detail it. I'm gonna make it ready for the listing. I'm gonna put my best foot forward. There's a lot of people think that we're just going to put a for sale sign in the yard, put it on the MLS, and it's going to sell. Yes, it probably will sell, but you're leaving a ton of money on the table. So I think what sellers are kind of afraid of is, where do I put my money into fixing this home that's going to return the investment? So there are some things you might put $1 into a home and you might be lucky to get $1 back, but it might make the home more sellable. There are some things you might put $1 in a home and it might translate into $3, $4 back, you know? So I did notice that getting the outside landscaping buttoned up correctly, very affordable improvement to your home. Cut, edge, blow, hedge, do the weeds, so the flower beds, that kind of stuff, and then a proper interior detail of the home. That's register vents, fan blades, soiled oven, tubs, toilets, that kind of stuff. Again, very affordable. And then when you declutter, listen, if you plan on moving, let's go ahead and start decluttering this kind of stuff, getting it packed up. Another person, I have a person that I send over to their house. Hey, listen, very affordable person. She'll help you start packing things, decluttering, move it into the garage, eliminate some of those distractions. We don't need, you know, the walls covered in artwork or, you know, stuff like that. So it just makes it, unfortunately, it's a distraction for the home buyer to see when the home is, you know, too cluttered. You know, sometimes, let's say some people have certain preferences with paint color, and I'm like, it probably is in the best interest to change it, to make it a little bit more neutral. So yes, There might be some people I might advise we need to renovate the bathroom, but for the most part, probably the common denominator with most of the homes that I'm listing, it's really something that's rather affordable and it could translate into a huge dollar amount as far as the offer price and how quickly that offer gets presented.
I saw that thing. You mentioned the landscaping making a big difference or getting a big return on that investment from a seller's perspective. Have you seen the thing about front doors and front facing garage doors also getting a high return?
You know, I guess that's a different city kind of situation because, I grew up in Florida and I'm not familiar. Like we did the rear garages and the alleys and the privacy fences. It's just a different type of look. Here in Lubbock, we get a lot of the side by side or board on board fences, and we have a lot of the paved alleys with the rear entry. Personally, having lived in Lubbock, I like the entry garages. I don't like cars parking in the front or on the street. I like, the street to be cleared up. Now, the larger homes, lots of times, so you have a lot of the communities that are like little first-time home buyers and stuff like first-time homes. They'll have the front entrance garages, and a lot of the luxury homes actually do as well, like side garages. But some of the smaller communities, homes 1,500 square feet and stuff like that, it's just very busy when you have a front garage. You have possibly a car in the garage, two on the driveway, and two on the curb. So you can imagine what 7 p.m. driving through that neighborhood looks like. So, um, you know, I think personally in this particular area in Lubbock, I think people prefer the rear entry garages overall. You don't want to see somebody's trailer parked in the front and stuff like that, but I can't control those kind of things. What I can control is, listen, is your landscaping looking right? Can we get the grass greened up? Can we get it tuned up? Can we get the inside looking like the goal on these things is to make it look like it wasn't a rental, to make it look like it was loved on, because when I walk into a home and I'm showing it, the question is this something that, listen, we can look at a lot of things. I'll look at Lubbock Central Appraisal District and see if the house has changed hands 4 times in the last 10 years. Which one would you rather have? Something that was owned by the same person for the last 10 years or sold 4 times? Next thing
Yeah,
you know, you
probably.
have like different types of flooring inside the house because it's like one artist started it, another one continued it, and another one finished it. So my goal, if I was trying to list the house, is to eliminate that perception. Because as a buyer's agent, when I walk into a home, if I see a home that's got mix and match flooring, I bet you when I pull up LCAD, it probably sold, 3, 4 times in the last 10 years. I want to make sure, and again, we're all different price points. You're talking about luxury homes, completely different subject matter. But for the most part, the average home here in Lubbock sells for $225,000. That can easily be a potential previous rental home, or it could have been somebody's homestead. So trying to get anybody in the right situation, I'm looking for those telltales. So when I'm listing it, I'm trying to make it look like it's something that somebody actually loved on and took care of.
It sounds like you were a real estate investor before you were even a realtor. So, or at least owned real estate prior to being a realtor. What advice would you give to people buying their first or second investment property in Lubbock?
I'm huge on buy and hold philosophy. I tried flipping a couple, and it's nice. You can make a couple bucks, right? But I'll give you one. So I bought one. I think it was like 179-ish or something like that, and I put about $25,000 into it. I lived in it. Hell, when I got to Lubbock, I think I lived in about 10, 11 houses. I was buying a house, living in it, fixing it up, turning it into a rental, so on and so forth. But I needed a little capital, so I was like, okay, for this one in particular, I'm gonna live in it for a couple years so I don't have to pay capital gains, and I'm going to flip it. I'm not going to turn it into a rental. I'm going to go ahead and sell it, get the cash, and move on. Actually, I used that cash to help build the custom home I live in now. And so I knew when I was getting into it that I would be ended up selling it. So I put about $25,000 into it. I turned around and sold it, and I think I made like, I don't know, 30, 35, $40,000 above and beyond what I had invested into the home. Well, here's the funny thing is the guy who bought it from me 2 years later, I see it hit the market, and I don't have kids, but I can tell you right now, I got pictures of every house I ever owned in Lubbock, right? Like to me, like I keep track of like all the houses I used to own, who's selling them, what's going on. So I see a listing and it says, like it's the house I used to live in, and it says recently renovated, and I see all the photos. That's my work. And here's the kicker. He's making $50,000 and hasn't touched the house. I only made $30,000, $35,000, and I did all the work, except for he's selling it in a better market than I sold in it. And so the guys, going back to your question, what would you advise somebody who's on their second or third house trying to build a portfolio? Hang on to your houses, because the real money's made when the homes hit a growth spurt. Listen, you can make $20,000, $30,000 when you flip, right? But you can make $20,000, $30,000 holding it for 2 years and not doing a thing. So my goal is passive income. I want to have as many houses as possible paid off so that I can live off of that income. So my advice to the investors is don't get so, when possible. Now I look at that house. I think I had that house at a 4.25 interest rate. And I think my mortgage payment on that house was 11 and change, I want to say. Maybe
Yeah.
$1,200, right? I bet you today that house would rent out for nearly I would say 25, $2,700. Now think of the
Yeah.
passive income I could have had. So I
Yeah.
have to ask myself, how much value was the money that I got out of that house? Like the opportunity cost. I probably would have been better had I had a mentor. Somebody would said, "Why don't you get a line of credit out on that house? That way you can move forward with that money, but you can protect your asset and stay owning that house." Make sense?
Yeah. Um, you also did a really big land deal. I saw some like drone videos. I think it was outside Lubbock. What did you learn on that one? Maybe talk about that deal.
So I have a friend of mine. I met her at the gym 5, 6 years ago, and she's a realtor in Dallas. And anytime I have, there's a lot of outgoing from Lubbock moving to Dallas or Austin or Houston, big cities kind of thing. And so anytime I have somebody moving to Dallas, I'll send it her way. So she calls me up and says, "Hey, I have family that's looking to sell some land." I'm thinking they're selling some vacant lots, and so as a friend, I'm like, sure, I'll take it. It's probably not a lot of money, you know. Anyway, so I called her father up, and it turns out to be like 380 acres of full-fledged farmland. I'm like, I have no clue about farmland. I mean, I'm talking cotton, sunflower, millet. I don't even know what millet is. They're talking drip irrigation, valley pivots, words I have no clue what they mean, but I didn't want to like disappoint her and say like, hey, listen, this is outside of my pay grade. So I had a couple friends that were farmers, and I took them out to dinner, and I basically interviewed. I think it was probably three different farmers, and I was like, if you're buying land, farmland, active farmland, what would you ask me to find out about this land in order to determine if it's a good purchase? So I just went to school, man. I took these people out to dinner and asked a ton of questions, took a ton of notes, and then when I met the property owner, I didn't sound like a total newbie, and so he gave me the opportunity to list the land, put the land, made the listing, had the drone, did the whole thing, got a lot of calls, and it was so nice because when I got the calls from other agents who actually list and buy farmland. So talk about like, internally, I'm thinking I'm totally outmanned. These guys do this for a living. I'm a residential realtor. I'm not a farmland realtor, So when they're asking me questions, I'm like, I felt so transparent. They're gonna see through me. But I was actually pretty well equipped. These interviews I mean, I learned so much from these guys that I could actually hold my own and answer the right questions and give them the right answers. And by the grace of God, the thing went under contract I mean, the listings I used as comps, I think they were active listings for at least a year. There was a ton of listings that were, north of 300 days. And I think 30, 40 days, I got an offer on the property and we were closing, and I want to say we closed the thing in 30 days after that. So it was for 2024. Here's the kicker. It was the largest deal I did, and it was the easiest deal I did.
How much did it close for?
It was north of $1 million.
No way. That's
Yeah,
insane.
the list price was north of $1 million. So
That's very,
I seriously, I worked harder selling $125,000 house than I did selling this
300,
farmland. So
350 acres.
just God is so good. Just, presented me the opportunity to have, obviously, I take a ton of pride when I get a referral, but especially a family member, like somebody's referring their family member. I know that's a huge commitment. I don't want to let anybody down. So it was a little nerve-wracking, especially when, if she would have said, hey, listen, he's got a house to sell. Sure. I mean, I could do that in my sleep. We did that, like I said, 46, 47 times on repeat last year. Farmland, though, completely, different story. So I did a lot, I lived a lot on Google and YouTube, and I mean, but it was a great experience, and I think it made me better as a realtor having gone through it. But like I said, long story short is it probably was the easiest sale of the year.
Well, it sounds like you're ready for the next one too.
Yeah.
Uh, so everybody needs to keep Omar in mind. You were
Yeah.
also general contractor on a big multi-unit property, and this is one that you actually showed me in person. I think you told me at one point it was leased to a women's nonprofit, and you managed all of the renovations, all of the contractors, and that entire project. What did you learn on that one?
Man, that one was a what a great experience. So I bought this one. I got a phone call again, another referral. She was she works in like the assisted living facility space, right? She said I have a client who I just took on. She has a house. She can't take care of it anymore. She's going to be living with us. Get a hold of her daughter. She's looking to sell it. So anytime somebody says they have a listing, the first thing I'm thinking as a real estate investor is, should I be buying that house? So I drove by it. It was a jungle. It was a jungle. I got access to the property. I opened the door. There's no floors, pier and beam. I actually fell below the house, walking into the house. Like there was no floor. When she said there was like, be careful, there's some missing. No, it's not missing flooring. There is no flooring. You open the door and it's right down to the dirt. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a huge project, but realistically, I can get it for pretty cheap. So the one I had to learn, of course, seriously, every aspect of the construction. I had to touch everything in that house. But the art of writing a good budget, and working with these lenders that actually do construction budgets, man, I made a lot of mistakes along the way, very expensive mistakes along the way. But the house had so much equity and potential that, of course, I think it's just one of those things where, I'm so grateful to have the house. It's probably my best individual acquisition. I want to say I bought that thing for low 90s, I believe, and I put probably $120,000 way over budget. I think my budget was like 80 grand on it. I had to put like 40 grand out of my own pocket, but it's a 6 bedroom, 3 bathroom with a back house efficiency. And so it rents out long-term tenants. I'll probably never have to deal with vacancy as long as I own it. Has a ton of equity in the property. It's all brand new, everything. Had to redo the plumbing, the AC, electrical, you name it. So it was a great, I learned a lot about it. Again, I honestly think it made me a better realtor. I can't tell you how many times I walk into a house and somebody's talking about we don't want to do this deal because the bathroom. I'm like, that's nothing, or the backsplash or the color of the cabinets. Like it's absolutely nothing. In fact, like I said, I open up my phone and I show them some of the before and after pictures of some of the projects that I've done. And, to be able to truly quote prices to these people and say, hey, listen, don't worry about that. Realistically, redoing the tile on that shower may be on a bad day, $2,500, depending on the style of tile and stuff like that. It gives them a sense. This is what I mean by I have some agents that they'll say there's no deal there. Oh, there's a deal there. But unfortunately, you weren't able to overcome the objection that they put in front of you. It wasn't something that I'm not saying strong arm a buyer into buying the home. I'm saying make them feel reassured that it's not a bad buy. They see a house and it has certain defects on it, right? Yes, it's probably very intimidating because they haven't gone through a full-fledged renovation like I have, right? They don't know what the prices are. If there was a game show for Price is Right, just Home Depot. Like I swear, I spend so much time in Home Depot. It just made me a better realtor.
Do you have any new projects that you're working on that I don't know about yet?
Yeah, there's a few. There's always something cooking. So we just recently
Anything you
picked up
can
the
talk
property
about?
last fall. I think we picked it up with 13 tenants out of 20, and so it's officially fully occupied. All the units have been renovated and touched up, so it's off to the races. I think I need to do a good facelift on the outside, but we're gonna wait a little bit to do that. But it's nice to see that one's cash flowing. It's very consistent now. Obviously, multifamily close to campus is gonna be in that particular area that's getting a lot of development going on, the value of that property is going to be, this is going to be, in my opinion, it'll be a home run here in 3, 4, 5 years. And then at that point, we'll entertain, doing some aesthetic improvements to the exterior and then possibly selling it 1031ing into something bigger. But I've got a couple partners that, they were all like me, one or two houses when we first met. And, one guy's got, I want to say 30 by himself now. The other guy's got about 25 by himself. Together, I introduced them. They've got another 20 or so together. And then all of us together have a number of properties. So I bet you between all of us, I don't know how many doors. It's north of 100 doors now. So at some point, we'll start liquidating these, and I get to be the listing agent. Uh, uh, we'll start liquidating these and 1031ing into some bigger projects that, the goal is to make it truly a little bit more passive. This first go round, I'm the contractor, I'm the handyman, I'm the property manager, I'm the everything. The next time, you listen, I've got the experience now, but the goal is to pay people to do that, make this more of a passive experience. But I think the biggest project for me personally is to kind of turn my my business model that I have here in Lubbock into more of a franchise type of feel where I can get, referral agents and I can spend a little bit more time, back home in Florida and like submitted my license to get my license in Florida. And there's no reason why I can't do both, So I think that's probably the biggest thing I'm kind of working on is try to make my business model here a little bit more automated for my own sanity and for my ability to start creating new business, whether it's business in Florida, new acquisitions. But like I said, there's only so much time in the day. So I
Yeah,
think
to
that's
free up some
my
time.
my biggest project is to kind of make it a little bit more streamlined.
Got it. Okay. What are some of your favorite books of all time? And then maybe mention any favorite books recently.
Um, I would say uh, I would say How to Win Friends and Influence People is probably, classic book, that, you know, every few years it's great to put that on audio and just reread it. Um, um, I'm a big Robert Greene fan. Some people have opinions about some of his stuff that he writes, but I think that there's, a lot of people will ask me, do you read any like fiction? And I'm like, no, it's always all business usually. So it's a lot of like, you know, um, a lot of stuff about self-improvement, um, help me stay motivated, help me stay organized, a lot of business related books. I'll be honest with you though, um, I just read Proverbs and believe it or not, that is one of the best books I've read ever. There's a lot of wisdom in Proverbs. And so
Yeah.
I might just put that one on repeat and keep reading it.
That's awesome, man. All right, so tell me what it means to over deliver as a realtor. That's come up in 20 of our conversations. What does that mean to you to over deliver as a realtor? And maybe speak about it from the client's perspective. What would that look like for them?
I mean, I take a ton of pride in my resume with people. One of the, when people are kind of sizing me up on, let's say like a Zillow call, let's say, and they're trying to determine if I'm the realtor for them, I'm like, go look at my past sales, pick an address, and I'll give you the name of the seller and the phone number of the seller or the buyer. And you could just go ahead and call them and ask them what their experience was like for me. Or you could read the reviews. I've got people pitching me on lead gen systems, and I'll say, do you have a realtor that's currently working on that system right here in Lubbock that you can give a contact number for? Oh no, and there's a reason why they can't do it. I'm like, so in other words, I'm the guinea pig, right? So I don't expect anybody to buy from me as the guinea pig. I'll gladly give you references, and I take a ton of pride in. I try to outperform any partnership. I don't care what the partnership is, whether it's business, personal, friendship. I want to know that they feel that it's a blessing to have me in their life. I don't want to be dead weight. I don't want to feel like I'm, you know, like that's just not how I'm programmed. So I get it. Sometimes the compensation doesn't line up with the effort that I put into it, but it's a blessing to have them. like I said, I've had to hit hard resets. There was a time where I had no clue what I was going to do for a living. I had no clue what kind of career path I was going to take. And now to know that my business is flourishing, I'm still grateful that my phone rings, and it might just be a $150,000 listing or purchase, but I take the call, you know? And so, yes, I get it. We all want to work those 600, 700, $800,000 houses here in Lubbock. Um, but but yes, and I know that my service standards probably outperform a $3,000, $4,000 commission, but I'm so grateful to have that business that I still take the call, you know? And so if you the question is how define over deliver. I mean, my goal is, you know, I want to wow them. I love the review at the end when they say, "Oh, Omar's the best realtor." I appreciate that. You never bought a house before. Trust me, I love hearing you say that, and I'm glad it's on my Zillow profile. But you know what I really love is when somebody says, "I bought six, seven, eight houses before, and I've never had this experience." That tells me I'm doing something right, you know? And everything else is going to take care of itself. If I can provide that level of service, trust me, they will tell their friends about it. They will tell their family members about it. I'll get the phone call, you know? So I do believe it's worth it to over deliver. But I mean, you know, greatness, in my opinion, is striving to do a bunch of little things that much better than the competition, you know? And so you and I are big sports guys, you know, a lot of our, you know, just our personal friendship is related around sports. And so, you know, you think about some of these athletes and how what separates them from the pack, you know, there's so many stories, you know, of the Jordans and the Kobe's about being the first guy in the gym or the last guy to lead. But if there was something specifically that they actually did that made them that much better than the competition, don't you think we'd all do it? Right?
Right.
If there was some lead gen system some realtor was using that allowed got them all these sales, don't you think everybody would do it? And so I think that over delivering just in a bunch of little things, uh, some of the most simplest things, like these people are buying or like buying the most important thing of their entire life, right? And the biggest purchase of their life. Can you imagine? I have to put myself in that position. What would it be like if you had to wait to get an answer on something so critical? You know, imagine
Yeah.
that feeling. You know,
So you're talking
so
about response time.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's that simple. Answer the phone.
Yeah.
You know, and I get it. It's tough. You have to create some boundaries because answering the phone can definitely invade in your personal life. It can interrupt things. It can whatever. But just the way you communicate. Sometimes I could say, like, listen, I get it. I might not be able to take the phone call, but I can at least say, hey, listen, I'm at an appointment. Let me text you back in 30 minutes. Just knowing that, but just going dark for 3 hours, can you imagine what it's like? You've got this pressing question. In your head, it's a big deal because it's the biggest purchase of your life. To me, it's not a big deal. I did this so many times. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. But to be able to just answer the phone and get them the answers that they need, you know, that alone really will. I mean, it's crazy how many times, because I'm not a local, the people I'm buying and selling to, a lot of times they may have used another realtor in the past. Why are they calling me and not that other realtor? So to take the time and ask them, I can see it in a previous MLS listing. I know who you use. Why aren't you calling them? You know, like what? Why are you picking up the phone and calling a stranger and starting this from scratch again? And so, learning from that experience and trying to remedy those issues, I would say probably the number one thing that I've come across is just quality communication. I mean, that's a big fix for a lot of people. You know,
Yeah.
being able to get them the answers they need in a timely fashion.
Yep. All right. So we'll let this be the last question for today. Pretend you're 80 years old. You're looking back on today, this year, this week. What would 80-year-old you tell today's Omar?
Man, that's a great question. I'll be honest with you, I've been asking that question to myself a lot lately on purpose, almost daily. It's slow down, be present, enjoy the moment, enjoy the process. Like, you got to have faith that you know where you're going, man. Like, do you feel like you're going to be successful at this? I mean, do you really know that you're going to be successful? Then what are you worried about? Like, not to get too spiritual about it, but like, if you have faith that God's going to provide for you, I'll be honest with you. I can't, hair on fire. I can't tell you how stressed out I've been with contract. Hey, like this custom build. I mean, I don't even, I can't tell you every time, hey, listen, we need the appliances. Oh my gosh, I got to go sell a house and buy the appliances and have them delivered to the house so they can install them. The whole house basically arrived in Amazon packages, Build.com packages, and I had to bring it to the builder so they can install things. I don't care if it's hinges, door locks, and so what a stressful time to think, oh my gosh, I got to go sell a house. I didn't even care. It wasn't even, I didn't see things as like, how much does that cost? I saw things as how many houses do I have to sell to pay for that, right? They need the windows. Go sell some houses so I can pay for windows, right? They need the flooring. They need so it was just absolutely madness over the last few years. And have I ever missed a mortgage payment? Missed a bank
Oh,
payment?
probably not.
Have I ever missed anything? It's like God always provides. I don't, don't get me wrong. I was stressed out along the way, but I never really worried. I mean, I worried about it, but I never ever missed that thing that I was worried about. Like somehow it always ended up happening for me, And so you got to have confidence in your resume and realizing, listen, if I've made it, going back to the question you said, like, tell me something that, some of the bounce back things that you had in your life. Start learning to live in faith that you have a resume that shows that you're going to make it through these things. Like you're going to be okay. And so I have to remind myself, 80-year-old Omar telling 32-year-old Omar, uh, but uh, but that you're gonna be okay. Slow down, enjoy the process. Have faith. You're gonna get there, man. Right? It's fine. Enjoy the process. Have you ever seen some of these couples that they're happily married? They're 20 years into their marriage, 25 years in their marriage. They're living a very financial, blessed life. In fact, one of my clients is like this. It's a married couple. They're both doctors. Live in probably the most beautiful home here in Lubbock. It's gorgeous, right? And I was talking to the wife, and she was talking about some of the best times, best memories in her life. Her kids both go to SMU, right? I mean, like they live a very blessed life. Every weekend they fly there. She loves being part of her daughter's life. I mean, they spend ungodly amounts of money shopping, like just live a very blessed life. She told me that some of her best, most fondest memories about being with her family was when they were in the grind in medical school, like living on ramen noodles and hard-boiled eggs. Like, so have that kind of perspective, realizing, listen, man, you're gonna make it. You're on a good path. You don't have to stress out about it. Enjoy the process and just have faith that you're gonna get where you're trying to go, you know? So
That's
that would
awesome, man.
probably be the best advice. I have to remind myself every morning, like, just relax, man. Whatever it is that you're up against, you'll get it done. It's all gonna work out. You're not gonna miss a payment. You're not gonna like you're gonna make ends meet. Like whatever it is that you're stressing about, like it's crazy how much time we'll spend stressing about those things and then look back, a couple months later and they're dust in the wind.
Thanks so much for coming on, Omar. This has been really good. Uh, Good to hang out today, and hopefully we get to work together again soon.
We absolutely will, my man. I'll call you on my next big problem deal.
Perfect.
I owe you an easy one, man. I owe you an easy one. It's good
We'll
talking to
take
you.
we'll take the hard ones and the easy ones. How's that?
Sounds great, man. I'll talk
All
to you
right,
later.
brother. Bye
Bye.
bye.